Hi and welcome to Scott's Inverts. I'm Scott, these are the Inverts, and today we're having a look at the cyriopagopus vonwirthi, previously known as the Haplopelma vonwirthi. And if you want to know the story behind the spider's name, stick around till the end of this video, because we've got the words of the actual taxonomist that it was named after. Anyway, let's get into today's video. So these guys, they come from Maynard over in Thailand, and their common name is the Thailand black, and you'll see why in just one second. Thailand experiences tropical monsoon climate with the winds blowing up from the northeast, and during the winter months it can actually drop temperatures down to 21 degrees and go all the way up to 28 degrees in the summer. So when we think about the average humidity in Thailand, it's around 70 to 80%, so we want to be keeping our spiders around 25 to 27 degrees. If it's 24, don't worry about it, that'll be completely fine. So if your room temperature is between 24 and 27, we've got this girl nailed down. We also want to keep her in around 70 to 80% humidity. We can also nail this down by keeping that soil or substrate nice and damp, and creating that moss layer to go across the top of that soil helps to keep that moisture inside that soil and increase the humidity down in her burrow where it needs to be. Now the enclosure you're going to be looking at is a fossorial enclosure. It needs to be nice and deep and enough room for her to burrow down. They do not need a hide. These guys will make their own burrow. And if you've seen last week's video on the minax in the same genus, you can see the differences between my girl up on screen now. She has those copper stripes on her legs which are absolutely striking. She's a little bit smaller as well, and she also has that carapace, that copper going around the carapace as well. She's absolutely gorgeous. I do really love the genus. Now these guys are relatively fast growing species, and the females can grow up to around 5 inches. The males, around 4, sometimes 4.5, with the females living around 15 years and the males living around 3 to 5. My girl up on screen now is literally about 5.1 inches across, so she's a good size for a vonwirthi, and I am looking for a mature male for her, so if you've got one, let me know. Now the temperament of these guys can be the same as any cyriopagopus. So they're a moody spider, they're a defensive spider, so when they're outside of their burrow, expect to see those threat poses. This one, the minax, the minax is probably the most moody in the genus, and the vonwirthi is probably the most, I don't want to use the word, let's say relaxed moody relaxed. So she is still moody, but she is not as moody as what the minax is. So if you want to start out in this cyriopagopus genus, this is probably the one that we're going to be looking at. She is an old world fossorial, so she does carry some real strong venom. So if you do happen to get a bite, she's going to destroy your day, she's going to wreck your day. It's going to be extremely painful. So when you're doing rehousing, or when you're actually rehousing it maybe for the first time, just be extra cautious. Get those catch cups, maybe a bit taller catch cups, and get quite a few around those 2 different enclosures, one from you're transporting to and the one that you're transporting into. Now guys, these are not a display tarantula, so in my opinion there's no point looking at a fancy glass enclosure or all the rest of it, because they're going to be a pet hole. So we're putting ours in a plastic tub, 25 litre tub, with moss in and the compulsory water dish, and we're just going to let her burrow all the way down. Now with this all said, let's check out the setup. So we have gone for a 25 litre tub. I'm not going to put this one in a glass enclosure because it's going to be down that starter burrow. Inside that burrow it's going to be a pet hole, so I'm quite happy keeping this in a plastic tub. The compost, that is just a compost with permaculite in, compulsory water dish, and then a load of that shockingly beautiful moss. What that moss does is it helps to keep the moisture inside of the compost and stops it escaping, so we can control humidity deep down in that burrow where my girl's going to be living. Admittedly, I might have made the starter burrow there. It is 2 fingers deep, 2 fingers wide. It might be a little bit wide, but you know, she'll web it up, she'll push up the substrate, so I'm quite happy that is the setup. Remember, she doesn't need much floor space, she needs more space going down, and she's got around 12 inches of depth going down. And there she is, with a bum right over the edge of that burrow, looking absolutely fantastic. This is probably, unless I can get for a mature male, which I do need for her, this is probably the last time I'll see her full body and not just a pair of legs sticking up. Now, at one point it was thought that the vonwirthi was a locale of the minax, but you can definitely see a lot of differences, especially with those copper/golden stripes on her legs, and the minax being a little bit bigger as well. As I think they're definitely different species, unless genetics going forward say anything different. I think these will be 2 separate species, full stop. But isn't she gorgeous? It's just a shame she's going to spend all that time down in that burrow and hardly ever coming out, only to eat. And they are quite lazy when they eat, so they do sit at the top of the burrow. But what a stunning species. Let me know if you keep cyriopagopus down in those comments. I absolutely love the genus. Boom! So that was our cyriopagopus vonwirthi, an absolutely gorgeous spider. And if you've made it this far and you're not subscribed, remember to hit that subscription button. And if you want to support the channel even further, click that blue join button down there and become a channel member. Now, this spider has been known by the names of the Haplopelma vonwirthi, the Haplopelma vonwirthi, and then the cyriopagopus vonwirthi. Now, vonwirthi is a taxonomist. So a friend of mine called Nikki knows him pretty well, and she sent the message, why is this spider named after you? What is the story? Expecting some epic story to come from it. Now, this story is quite a sad one, about 2 friends, but we have the permission for Volkner vonwirthi to share his story, so I'm not going to change his words. I'm literally going to read it word for word for what he put to how this spider become known as a vonwirthi. And he said, well, the story behind it is not that cool, rather sad. Schmidt and I used to work together on spider identification and describe some tarantulas together. As you probably know, as I got older and started my own bio studies, however, I learned that way Schmidt described the species was completely outdated. I became one of his biggest critics and stopped the collaboration. Schmidt knew that at the time, however, that I was working on the description of Haplopelma longipipes. So to spite me, he quickly described a new spider species that he thought was Haplopelma longipipes, so that I wouldn't be quite so mad because he had stolen this supposed Haplopelma longipipes away from me. He named this species after me. Fortunately, he did not describe the real Haplopelma longipipes, but the Haplopelma species which we know in the hobby under the name of vonwirthi. This has nothing to do with Haplopelma longipipes, which had not recognised because of its outdated way of working. So a little later, I could actually describe my Haplopelma longipipes. This is a sad story behind behind the name of this species. Of course, I would have been much happier if a species had been named in my honour, but not to make me feel gracious. I think that gives us a real insight to taxonomists, how they are normal people and how people sometimes can feel a bit out of joint if they use an outdated methodology, especially if somebody new comes onto the hobby that can see an easier way or a more up-to-date way or an easier way of describing a spider. We can certainly see. I think it was nice of Schmidt to then go on and actually name that spider after him. Now, when we were looking at the minax, they look very, very similar to the vonwirthi. So we put the question to Volkner about them maybe being a different locale. He says, currently the minax can morphologically be differentiated from the vonwirthi by a few characteristics, and of course one of those is the stripes on the legs. He then goes on to say, whether genetic studies in the future will show that both species are perhaps so closely related they are combined into one species remains to be seen, but we are working on it. I think that's pretty impressive to actually get the words of a taxonomist onto the channel. So a massive shout out to Nikki. Really appreciate you reaching out to Voltner for me. Thank you so much. Really, like I said, really appreciate it. I think the whole story behind the name of two friends that went their separate ways looking for that same spider, when Schmidt found it, decided to name it after his old friend who he'd fallen out with. I thought that was a real nice gesture, whether it was meant to gracious or honour. I like to think it was meant to honour Voltner. If you don't know who Voltner vonwirthi is, please do Google him. He is an absolutely amazing guy. In the UK, we kind of think of Andrew Smith and what have you. Voltner is literally like up there somewhere. He is literally a spider god, or a god of the gods, if you like. He's absolutely awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you listening to that last piece as well. Really do appreciate your time. Again, if you keep cyriopagopus, let me know down in those comments. If you have a mature male vonwirthi, lividus, or Minax, please get in contact with me, because I am looking for those three. I can breed those ones quite easily here, and it would be pretty awesome to get those underway. Anyway, I'm going to waffle for every day. So thank you again so much for watching, and as always, we shall see you again on the next one.